Why did I create CommonGround? In part because I wanted to help to create a new career path for peer staff in decision support centers. We have an emerging workforce across our nation of emerging peer practitioners. And peer practitioners can have some unique roles and do not just have to duplicate services that are offered by more traditional mental health workers. And one of the new roles that peer staff can play in 21st century healthcare is as decision support coaches, is to introduce people to technologies that can be used to support recovery. And this is a unique career path for peer staff. And I was just talking to Paolo Del Vecchio at the SAMHSA about creating a core competence curriculum for peer staffs across the country to do good decision support with folks. So it's very exciting. I also felt strongly, and you heard it from Lee, that just because you're reducing symptoms with high-dose medications, sometimes that the meds can be disabling. Meds are supposed to support recovery. The use of medications combined with personal medicines is the pathway into the life we want for ourselves, and that optimizing that balance is the key to finding that pathway into recovery for many of us. So we have to get the focus off of just reducing symptoms and on to functional recovery outcomes like raising our kids and getting back to school. Why did I create CommonGround? As I began to create it, now I had a web-based application, and I began to see the power of the web to begin to change how we practice. I began to recognize that we're at a unique moment in history right now. We see the advent of electronic health records, cropping up across our country, part of national health care reform, incentivizing the adoption of electronic health records, And what I began to see is these electronic health records are being built for the convenience and to support clinical decision-making of practitioners. And too often what I see in these electronic health records is simply a hard coding of what we're already doing. We're replicating in the digital world what we're doing in the physical world. And if we have non-strengths-based, deficit-based practices in the three-dimensional world, and we're replicating that in the care flow of the EHR, then all we're doing is cementing in hard code a series of props and text boxes and to check off and fill out for clinicians that keep them working in the same way they've been working across time. Now that's not all bad, but look at the opportunity that we're missing. What would happen if we built an electronic health record from the ground up that was intended to be built around the voice of the individual? What would happen? What would that look like? And that became a thought experiment that I'm increasingly intrigued with. What would an electronic health record that was recovery-oriented, person-centered, wellness-oriented really look like? One way to think about this in your imagination is to say when a clinician comes to work, psychiatrist, psychologist comes to work, social worker, sits down, and the first thing they do in the morning is they fire up the computer these days, right? And they get the EHR up, the electronic health record comes up. What percentage of space in that opening dashboard should be devoted to the voice, the preferences, and the concerns of the individual? What percentage of that screen real estate on that opening dashboard? So for instance, just to put it more concretely, if I'm a person in recovery from opiate addictions, and my medical team opens up their EHR in the morning, that I'm going to have surgery. And I've been clear that even though this surgery may be painful, I want as little opiate to be used as a painkiller for me, preferably none, but definitely no longer than a 2-day period, because I can't get re-addicted to this stuff and lose my ground in my recovery. When the clinician, when the surgeon, when the ER nurses open up that EHR on that day, where on that dashboard is my message about me? Where is it? And I can tell you, because I've seen many of these EHR, it's not there. My voice is not there. So one of the ways we begin to operationalize all of the talk about person-centered care is we can begin to operationalize it in that digital universe of the electronic health record. So part of my ongoing crusade with directing and creating Common Ground is to begin to say we are in a window of opportunity, and we have got to bring person-centered care into the digital world of the electronic health record. So for instance, right now, it's not uncommon, for instance, in the VA, which has a very sophisticated electronic health record, for people to arrive at the doctor's office at the VA, to be handed a tablet, and to fill out a Hamilton Depression Rating Scale, and that information zooms into the clinician's office. So when the doctor sees the person they're treating for depression, they can see on a standardized scale how the person's doing. Isn't that the same as Common Ground? No. That's the same old, same old. Doc asks the questions, we offer the answers. In the new world, the new vision that we're pioneering, decision support is bi-directional. That I may be filling out a Hamilton Depression Rating form on an iPad for my clinician, but that I can also see the graph of my progress as well. And that information about my progress is as readily available to me as it is to my clinician. And that the EHR puts in my hand, as the consumer, as the client, as the patient, puts in my hand the capacity to explore my own data, to do what's called personal data mining. How am I doing over time? To ask questions of my data. Most EHRs completely miss that point. So these are the kinds of things that we are beginning to pioneer with Common Ground. And I'll be honest with you, at this point we are talking to my little teeny tiny company. We are talking to some big EHR companies, and they kind of scratch their head, and but they're at least listening. We're getting to the table at least with this message and saying we're in a window of opportunity.